As I slid behind the wheel of my car and turned the key, the engine roared to life, breaking the eerie silence of the night. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a dim light on the desolate road ahead. I was on my way back from a long trip, the monotony of the highway stretching out before me like an endless ribbon of asphalt. I glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It read 2:37 a.m. A shiver ran down my spine as I realized just how late it was. I knew I had to stay alert, as fatigue threatened to engulf me. I turned up the volume on the radio, hoping the music would keep me awake. As I cruised along the deserted road, the trees lining the edges seemed to sway ominously in the breeze. Shadows danced in the moonlight, playing tricks on my weary mind. The road seemed to twist and turn, each bend leading me deeper into the unknown. The only source of light was the dim glow from my headlights, barely piercing the darkness. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. It was as if unseen eyes were peering at me from the surrounding darkness, their gaze filled with malice. My heart raced, and a cold sweat trickled down my forehead. I chided myself for letting my imagination run wild. The road ahead seemed to stretch into infinity, the white lines blurring together. My eyelids grew heavy, and my grip on the steering wheel tightened. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the distance. It was a hitchhiker, their silhouette illuminated by the faint glow of my headlights. I hesitated for a moment, torn between my instinct to help and the caution that screamed in my mind. But something about this person seemed off, sending a chill down my spine. Against my better judgment, I decided to drive past them. As I glanced in the rearview mirror, my heart skipped a beat. The hitchhiker was gone, as if they had vanished into thin air. My hands trembled as I continued driving, my nerves on edge. I desperately searched for a sign of civilization, anything that would anchor me to reality. But the road remained desolate, devoid of life. It felt as though I had stumbled into a different dimension, a world inhabited solely by my fears. Just as despair threatened to consume me, a flickering light appeared in the distance. A gas station. Relief flooded through me, and I increased my speed, desperate to reach the sanctuary of civilization. As I approached, however, a sickening realization dawned on me: the gas station was abandoned, a decaying relic of the past. A gnawing sense of dread settled in the pit of my stomach. I slammed on the brakes, bringing my car to a screeching halt. That's when I saw it, a single figure standing beside the gas pumps. A figure dressed in tattered clothes, their face obscured by the darkness. Panic gripped me as I realized the hitchhiker had returned, somehow materializing in front of me. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers trembling. But before I could dial for help, the figure stepped forward, revealing their face. It was me, a perfect doppelganger, staring at me with a twisted grin. My heart pounded in my chest, my mind unable to comprehend what was happening. In that moment, the world around me shattered. Reality collapsed, and I found myself trapped in a twisted nightmare. The road vanished, the car dissolved, and I was left alone with my doppelganger, trapped in a nightmarish void. And as the darkness consumed me, I realized that the true horror wasn't the road or the hitchhiker, it was the darkness that lurked within myself. The doppelganger before me was a manifestation of my deepest fears and hidden demons, a reflection of the darkness that resided within my own soul. A cacophony of whispers filled the air, echoing through the void. They were my own thoughts, twisted and distorted, revealing the insecurities and secrets I had buried deep within. The doppelganger grinned wider, mocking me with every step closer. Desperation surged through me, and I fought against the suffocating grip of the darkness. I clawed at the air, searching for an escape, a glimmer of hope. But my efforts were in vain. The darkness was relentless, consuming everything in its path. As the doppelganger reached out, its fingers grazing my trembling skin, a surge of adrenaline coursed through me. A surge of determination and resilience I didn't know I possessed. I refused to surrender to the darkness, to the twisted reflection of myself. With a burst of strength, I broke free from its grasp. I ran, not knowing where I was headed, but driven by an instinct to survive. The whispers grew louder, urging me to give in, to accept the darkness as my own. But I refused. I clung to the sliver of light that still burned within me. Through the endless expanse, I stumbled upon a faint glimmer of hope, a dim flickering light in the distance. I sprinted towards it, fueled by the remnants of my shattered courage. As I drew closer, the light grew brighter, illuminating a small door amidst the darkness. With trembling hands, I pushed open the door, stepping into a realm of blinding brightness. The darkness instantly dissipated, and I found myself standing on the side of the road, my car parked nearby. The night had vanished, replaced by the warm embrace of dawn. Breathing heavily, I glanced around, half expecting to see my doppelganger lurking in the shadows. But there was no sign of it. It seemed that the confrontation with my darkest fears had been left behind in the void. Shaken but relieved, I slid back into my car, gripping the steering wheel tightly. The events of that night would forever haunt me, a reminder of the darkness I carried within. But I had emerged stronger, more aware of the battles that raged inside my own mind. As I drove away, leaving the abandoned gas station behind, I vowed to confront my inner demons head-on. No longer would I allow them to control me, to cast a shadow over my life. The road stretched out before me, a symbol of endless possibilities and newfound strength. And as the sun bathed the world in its golden glow, I embraced the light, determined to navigate the twists and turns of life with a renewed sense of courage and resilience. The road may be unsettling and filled with unexpected horrors, but I would face them head-on, forever transformed by the chilling night drive. The engine hummed softly as I drove down the deserted road, the darkness swallowing everything in its path. The only source of light was my headlights, piercing through the night, casting eerie shadows on the surrounding trees. It was the type of night that made you uneasy, that made you question every sound and movement in the distance. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, feeling a shiver crawl up my spine. As I continued along the desolate stretch, my mind began to wander, lost in the labyrinth of thoughts. The occasional flickering of the streetlights gave the illusion of fleeting shadows darting across the road, whispering secrets in the wind. A chill crawled up my arms, but I shook it off, blaming it on the cool night air. I glanced at the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of my own reflection. It felt as if someone was watching me, their eyes piercing through the glass. A wave of unease washed over me, and I quickly averted my gaze, focusing on the road ahead. But there was something off about the darkness that stretched beyond my headlights' reach, something sinister lurking in the void. A flash of movement caught my attention from the corner of my eye, but when I turned to look, there was nothing there. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel the knot of fear tightening in my stomach. I brushed it off as mere imagination, the product of a tired mind playing tricks on me. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. Suddenly, a figure appeared on the side of the road, standing motionless in the dim glow of the streetlight. My breath hitched, and I instinctively slowed down, my pulse racing. The figure was hunched over, wearing tattered clothes that hung loosely from its skeletal frame. Its face was hidden beneath a worn-out hat, casting a shadow over its features. My curiosity got the better of me, and against my better judgment, I pulled over to the side of the road. As I approached the figure, a cold breeze whispered through the trees, rustling the leaves in a haunting melody. With each step, I felt a sense of foreboding intensify, as if I was about to uncover a dark secret. "Excuse me," I called out, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and curiosity. "Are you all right?" The figure slowly turned its head towards me, the dim light revealing a pair of hollow eyes staring back at me. A voice, brittle and broken, escaped its cracked lips. "Help me," it whispered, sending a chill down my spine. "Please, help me." I reached out, my hand trembling, but before I could make contact, the figure's form began to disintegrate, as if it were made of smoke. Panic surged through me as I stumbled backward, my mind unable to comprehend what was happening. And then, in a heartbeat, the figure vanished completely, leaving behind only an eerie silence. The air felt heavy with an otherworldly presence, and I knew I had stumbled upon something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. As I got back into my car, my hands shaking uncontrollably, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped something unimaginable. The road stretched out before me, the darkness now even more menacing. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, vowing never to venture into the depths of the night again, haunted by the knowledge that there are things in this world that defy explanation. And as I drove away, I couldn't help but wonder what other dark secrets lay hidden in the shadows, waiting to be discovered by unsuspecting souls like mine. It was a dark and stormy night as I embarked on a lonely drive along an empty country road. Rain pounded against the windshield, creating a symphony of eerie sounds. The dim glow of my headlights struggled to pierce through the thick fog that enveloped the road ahead. The atmosphere was suffocating, and a sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. As I continued my journey, the radio crackled to life, emitting static and fragments of haunting melodies that sent shivers down my spine. I reached out to turn it off, but just as my fingers brushed the dial, a voice, distorted and raspy, echoed through the speakers. "Keep driving," it hissed, sending chills down my spine. I felt a wave of fear wash over me, but curiosity and a hint of disbelief compelled me to continue listening. The voice spoke again, this time clearer but laced with an eerie calmness. "Don't look back. There's something following you." My heart raced, pounding in my chest like a trapped animal. I dared not glance into the rearview mirror, fearing what I might see lurking in the darkness behind me. My grip on the steering wheel tightened, my knuckles turning white, as I pushed the pedal harder, desperate to escape whatever sinister presence trailed behind. Minutes stretched into an eternity as the road seemed to wind on endlessly. The rain beat down relentlessly, as if nature itself conspired to trap me in this nightmare. The voice on the radio became a constant companion, guiding me through the labyrinth of my fears. Suddenly, my headlights illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes, narrowly avoiding a collision. Through the downpour, I could make out a man, drenched in rain, his clothes tattered and torn. His face was obscured by darkness, but his hollow gaze pierced through the windshield, sending a jolt of terror coursing through my veins. Without warning, the voice on the radio whispered, "He's the one you should fear. He's not what he seems." Confusion consumed me as the pieces of this macabre puzzle fell into place. The figure before me was not the threat, it was the voice guiding me. Fear mingled with a newfound sense of dread as I realized the true nature of my tormentor. Frantically, I searched for the radio's off button, but my attempts were in vain. The voice grew louder, more insistent, "Keep driving. Keep driving." In a moment of desperate courage, I flung open the car door, the rain drenching me instantly. I sprinted away from the vehicle, leaving it behind like a specter in the night. The voice followed me, taunting and beckoning, but I refused to yield. Breathless and soaked, I stumbled upon a dilapidated cabin nestled deep within the woods. The door creaked open, and I found refuge within its decaying walls. The voice trailed off into the distance, fading into the storm. As I caught my breath, I surveyed my surroundings, my heart still pounding in my chest. It was then that I noticed the photographs hanging on the cabin walls. The faces staring back at me were all too familiar, the figure on the road, the radio host, and even myself. In that moment, the horrifying truth hit me like a thunderbolt. I was trapped in an endless loop, doomed to relive this nightmarish drive over and over again, forever tormented by the voice that whispered in my ear. And as the storm raged on outside, I resigned myself to my fate, forever haunted by the twisted reality I could never escape.